lot of running around to do today.
All good. All right. So, first things first, how did you start your career?
Well, I was playing in terrible little punk and metal bands in high school, and after I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I applied for the Grant McKeown music program and got in and met a lot of great people, learned a lot about what I loved about music and what I didn't love about music, and right out of school, I made a rock band with a couple guys, and the band really took off. It was this pretty interesting time. It was the early 2000s. The band is called Tupelo Honey, and we very quickly were able to get on some really big shows. And before we knew it, we were, opening for Bon Jovi, playing arenas, and touring Canada and a little bit of North America. We had lots of top 40s and songs on Much Music and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really really exciting time. Um, we had national acclaim and things were going really well, but we kind of got to the point where it was tough. The rock was in a bad spot. There was less bands to tour with, less places to play, and radio wasn't in a good spot. So we decided to try some other things, and a bunch of us went back to school and got degrees. But I knew I wasn't quite done yet. So I started writing for a solo project and just decided to unlock all those doors that I'd kept locked in the past. And it just kind of came out country. It was a little twangier. And I guess that's something that you can't hide from when you grow up in Alberta. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where it
that's
all
the
started
truth.
from.
That's the truth. In Alberta, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you change to it, you somehow always end up being country.
Yeah, there's some real roots in the veins when you come from a place like this where there's so much open space.
Mhm. So, what's your musical background like? Do you have any other family members that are in music and all that stuff, or is it just you?
Yeah, no one's in the business for sure, but my grandma was a piano teacher, and my dad plays piano and guitar and sings. And when I was a kid, he'd always be singing me songs going to sleep, and we would be always talking about music and car rides, going on the long trip back to Manitoba, where our lake is. Um, so yeah, I grew up with a lot of that around me: Beatles, Eagles, Queen, Supertramp, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Blue Rodeo, Lyle Lovett. A lot of artists like that were really big in our house growing up.
Gotcha. So, why do you do this professionally? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could have just done this as like a side hobby, or like, what made you take the extra steps you've made to do this?
I think at first it was the only thing I could think that I really wanted to do. It was the only real passion that stuck with me. And then once, I wasn't sure that I was going to end up here. Like we started playing just for fun and seeing what happens. And then when stuff started to happen and people started to really like the music, it kind of became, apparent to me that me and the guys and other people like me were doing something that a lot of people don't get the chance to do. And I felt like I'd be stupid to not pursue it because it's the greatest job ever. You get to make music with your friends and travel the world.
Hmm. So, do you write any of your own songs?
Yeah, I've written every song I've ever put out except for one. There's one song that was pitched to me that I loved, and I had to get on it. But other than that, every other tune is a co-write with somebody close to me, and I have kind of like a sort of a usual suspects crew of people that I work with on the songwriting side of things. And yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the job. I get to do it for other people too.
Okay. What's your process like when you're doing that? Do you have like or like a systematic process, or is it just like, it just comes to you and then you just write things down, or how do you do that?
Yeah, it's different every time. Like sometimes it'll start with a title. A lot of guys in Nashville like to work that way. They have a title and everyone writes for the title. But sometimes for me, it's a melody or it's a guitar riff or it's just there's something that strikes me about a line that kind of inspires the rest of it. But typically, I like to have some sort of starting point going into a writing session, and I'll hatch that out with a couple co-writers. Everyone talks about their starting points, and we have a long. I like to have a big long conversation before the writing process starts, and we talk about where people are at in their life and the music industry and just like things that we can find that we have in common and all these things. I always like a good hangout before we start creating. I think that helps kind of get the juices flowing a little bit. And I think that's why I end up working with a lot of people that I know, a lot of my friends. Um, yeah, so other than that, I don't really have too much of a process typically when we write a song, there you make a work tape in your phone, just an iPhone message, and you record it rough with an acoustic guitar and mistakes and all, and nobody cares. And then somebody will take it, usually me these days, and make a demo out of it. And from there, the demo either becomes the recording by getting tweaked and tweaked and tweaked, or you take the demo to a producer, and the producer says like, I think we should change the tempo, change the key, do this to this section, and kind of starts hacking it apart that way. So that's typically how you get a song from start to finish.
Okay, well that's cool. What kind of career do you think you would have chose if you didn't pursue music like you did? Do you think you'd think you have any fallback options or?
Yeah, I mean, I have a business degree, so I'm sure there's lots I could do. I would probably end up being heavily involved in my wife's family company. They have a really great business here in Edmonton, a couple of them. But I always wanted to be a lawyer, like my dad and my sister. They're lawyers, and I just know so much about the business by having to do it all because I've been an independent artist since I was 19 years old, and it's 20 years now. So I know the business inside out. So I think I'd make a great entertainment lawyer. I just have to learn the law.
Gotcha. So when you perform, like, is there anything you do like different before you perform or after you perform, or do you like have a ritual, or is it just like same old same thing every time?
Not we only have one really normal ritual that we do with the guys, and it's just a stupid thing where we love to have a shot of whiskey before we go on stage and say best show ever because it's every show is the best show ever, and it's the best job ever when you get to hang out with your friends, and it's best job for my friends because all my friends are on the payroll, so it works so good for them. But that's pretty much it. We try to be as prepared as possible and make sure we're talking over the changes. And I like to sit alone by myself for a minute and kind of visualize the set, what I'm going to say. I've noticed that when I make actual physical notes, I screw it up. But if I go through it in my head and I'll write a keyword on the set list, then I like to plan it out because any more than 3 seconds of dead air is a failure on my part as an entertainer. So I really like to make sure that there's a lot of momentum in the show.
Gotcha. What's it like performing on stage in front of people?
I never thought I'd be able to do it because, when I was a kid in school, I was terrified of like giving presentations in class and stuff like that. But when I got into rock and roll band and we started playing for really big crowds, it was a couple hundred, then it was a couple thousand, and then it was like up to 17,000, I think was the biggest crowd I ever played. And that stage fright goes away. It kind of turns into confidence. And it's funny, you start to build that confidence in front of those big crowds because it's herd mentality when you're talking to a massive crowd. When you're talking to 50 people, it's a lot harder than playing to 5,000 people. It's the weirdest thing, but like that experience of having to do both of those things really made me super comfortable on stage, and you have to think about it from the audience's point of view, and you have to pretend nothing ever goes wrong. Everything is exactly as planned, and you kind of almost have to flip a switch and get into superhero mode when you get on stage. Your personality has to be exemplified and just like completely exponentially bigger than it is in normal life, and it's weird. I talk about this all the time with other people that are the front person of their band or solo artists. Like when you get on stage, you're still yourself, but you're just this blown up version of yourself, just
Right,
because that's what people want to see. They want to you're listening to the person with the biggest voice in the room, so you have to be that person on stage.
right. How do you handle in some situations if, for example, you notice some of the crowd is like, for example, watching a hockey game or like not interested? Does that affect you at all, or do you just focus on the people that are like in front of you, like cheering you on?
Well, in the old days when we used to play those kind of clubs where there would be a hockey game on or a UFC fight or something like
Hmm.
that, it was tough. It's really bad, but a lot of clubs nowadays will respect the fact that when there's an artist playing on their stage that they're paying to be there, they're going to turn off the TVs and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So like for younger artists, that is definitely something that can hurt your ego. I don't have to deal with that anymore. But yeah, I've been there, and you just have to put on your best show regardless of the situation every single time. You have to pretend that everyone is just dying to see you, and that's kind of the only way you can do a show.
Hmm. Do you have any regrets in your music career or anything you wish you would have done differently?
Um, I don't know. I think it's just maybe a little bit. There's some decisions I would have made more boldly, I think. as a younger person. I think there's some fear of the what ifs of the world. But now that I've done a lot, I feel like I'm just taking big swings all the time. All I want to like, I got no time to screw around. I'm here to like to throw the Hail Mary pass. So I'm always going big or go home. And I wouldn't be able to have this attitude now if I didn't go through those moments where, I had analysis paralysis and things like that. I think it's the all you can do in this business is be insanely prepared and have a bit of a vision. And I think before, maybe I would say that's maybe a regret. Maybe I didn't spend the time to create a clear vision as a younger artist, but you can't know until you do it. And so I'm sure if I went back in time and I was able to bring my knowledge to the old Tupelo Honey rock and roll band days, would have been a different outcome. But you can't. How can you say?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have a favorite song you've written? Like, is there one of your like a top song you're like, oh man, I nailed it with this one.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me not to say "Found" when I say that when I get that question because it just went platinum in Canada, and it's
Yeah.
the song that really did change my life. Like as soon as that came out, everything was starting to fall into place, and it was just a matter of keeping up with the momentum of that song, which
Hmm.
it wasn't easy, but that was another great challenge for me. Is like when you have something and you set a bar super high, it's a great challenge for you to get back to that bar. So I've written a lot of songs that I really love and I'm really proud of, and I hope that people love as much as I do.
Hmm.
But "Found" is definitely the big one, and I love the song "Church." I wrote that with a friend of mine in Portland, and I find that one to be really fun. I love the song "Role Models." "Role Models" is a good one. It's just like a good, crazy, drunken beer garden song. So those are always fun to play.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's hard to say. They're all just like they're all your children.
So how would you say the platinum affected you? Like, did it maybe change your viewpoints, or like, did you kind of understand that since you went platinum, it's like, oh boy, that you gotta
Um,
just gotta keep
I think
going.
yeah, well, it's a lot of that, but I think what it did was like I knew it was going to go platinum. I've known for a while, but I think what it really does is it changes the viewpoint of the industry. So for me, it was just communicating it in a classy way that didn't seem like I was trying to rub it in everyone's faces. I just wanted to show the industry like, hey, I'm selling songs and people like my music and things are going good. So that was the big bonus for having a platinum song. It's not like, I did it. I can stop now. It's more just like something cool to talk about, and it's something great for my resume, and it really helps my reputation in the industry.
Gotcha.
Because it's
And
really it's really hard to do as an independent artist. Not very many indie artists get a platinum record, so it's pretty cool.
yeah, that's true. So I remember when we were emailing, you said you had some tours going on, that you were going to be touring in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I got back from Australia and Spain. I was there in October and November, and now well, I'm about to head out of town tomorrow to go to Arizona to keep working on a bunch of content for my new record. But beyond that, yeah, I'm playing all over Canada this summer. Lots of festivals, especially in Ontario, a few in Alberta. And then beyond that, I'm going to be headed back to Australia for my second tour down there, which is really exciting. They've been so welcoming. I had two top tens in Australia this year, so
Wow.
pretty good start.
Yeah, that's impressive. Um, so this, I like to turn this part just like a little bit of a Q and A part where like I just ask you a couple of basic facts just like to get to know you a little more better.
Sure.
All right, what's your favorite color?
Say blue.
Hey, twinsies. Me too. Any
I know it's
particular
because like
reason?
I don't know. I just gravitate towards blues and grays. I think like my closet is just full of it, so I consciously have to remember that when I go buy stuff for photo shoots.
Gotcha. Do you have any animals?
Just a goldfish. Yeah, I'm the worst country musician ever. I'm allergic to everything. Allergic to horses, allergic to dogs and cats. It's the worst.
Wow, okay. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I got three sisters, and they're all younger than me. They're all pretty successful and really interesting people. There's a pharmacist, a lawyer, and a teacher, and two of them played hockey with Haley Wickenheiser. And yeah, they're always very intimidating to have as siblings. That's for sure.
Yeah, I should be talking to them instead of you.
Yeah,
No, I'm
I
just
tell
kidding.
everyone that.
I'm just kidding. So if you don't mind me asking, you said you had kids?
I do. I have two little girls. They're 6 and 9.
So you have a very girl-oriented family.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's always been me and the girls, no matter what, growing up. So a lot of girls in our family, and I think it's good for me actually. It's been a good perspective change. That really helps me understand women and helps me understand the country music genre because a lot of the fans are women. So
Yeah,
it's been a huge plus. I'm really thankful I grew up with sisters.
gotcha. And is there any? I'm gonna give you the floor. Is there anybody you like to shout out, or anybody like anything you want to talk about or shout out to? The floor is yours.
Well, my favorite thing in this whole industry is the point of it all for me is always connecting with people and trying to create experiences. So I love hearing from people on Instagram and on Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. It's so great. So I always put a lot of effort into all my crazy music videos on YouTube and all my content. And so yeah, if anyone's watching this or listening to this and they want to reach out, I'd love to respond and say hi back, of course.
Gotcha. And last question here is, you got any questions for me or anything you want to ask me?
No, not really, man. I mean, I would love for you to make sure you link me in on whenever you post, and I'd love to keep in touch and see what you got cooking.
Well, thank you so much. I've been trying. I went to Alberta Music. It's a website, and even though it's like
Hmm.
a couple years old since anybody's posted it, and I went through about thousands of different artists and bands and all that in Alberta, and I emailed almost every single one. So hopefully that the emails
Oh
are actually
wow.
valid and people start, like responding back. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think what really hopefully this helps you, but I think what really made me want to jump on is just you're saying, like, hey, I'm 18 years old. I'm trying to get something going for myself, and it's good. Like I think people respect the hustle, so that's a good way to start those conversations.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's not really more of a hustle. It is more of me just trying to help artists out, like under the radar and all that, like under the radar, upcoming and all that. Because I don't need this. Like just like
Yeah.
a fun hobby. But I find it the way I'm trying to impact other people is much more fulfilling and gratifying.
Yeah, I think you'll find it'll lead you to some cool little situations. This kind of stuff always does. So, best of luck for you, my man.
I appreciate that, and don't worry, I'll be getting some merch of yours, so that way I can say I have some Dan Davidson merch all of my own.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to plug this show on February 25th. It was sold out, and then we moved to a bigger venue, so there's still 50 tickets for sale. So I guess that's one thing you could talk about. We're playing in Edmonton at the Starlight Room on February 25th.
And don't worry, I'll try to get the word out best as I can. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day just to talk with me, and I look forward to seeing what you have in the upcoming future.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thanks so much, Dylan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Bye bye.
See ya.